Hey, Dr. Wilson here. I'm a structural and molecular biologist, and I saw that there's a brand new COVID-19 myth that's sweeping the internet. It's this idea that the CDC just rolled back 94% of all COVID deaths, and I thought I'd just squash it because people are wildly misinterpreting this information. Recently, the CDC released a report saying that only 6% of COVID deaths list only COVID-19 on their death certificates, meaning that the other 94% have other things listed alongside COVID-19 on their death certificates. Media outlets and memers all over the internet are running with this information, saying that 94% of COVID deaths are fake, that other things killed them, not COVID. This is wrong. The reason people are getting this wrong is because they don't understand what a comorbidity is. A comorbidity can be a pre-existing condition that existed before you had the disease, or it could be something that was caused by the disease. Pre-existing conditions that can count as comorbidities include things like cancer, chronic kidney disease, diabetes, and even things like asthma and high blood pressure. Even smoking or lung damage caused by smoking can be a comorbidity. These are all things that can be listed on the death certificate along with COVID, but it was still COVID that pushed that patient over the edge and actually caused their death. But more often, what counts as a comorbidity in these cases are things like pneumonia, which are caused by bacteria that infect the lungs after a viral infection. These kinds of pneumonia happen after viral infections, so without the viral infection, you wouldn't get the pneumonia and you wouldn't have died. So it's still COVID that is causing these deaths at the end of the day. This happens all the time with viral diseases. Think of HIV, which pretty much destroys a person's immune system. You don't die directly from HIV. It takes your immune system away and then makes you vulnerable to secondary infections, which actually kill you. But that wouldn't have happened if it weren't for HIV. So they're still counted as HIV deaths. Same thing with influenza. Influenza attacks the lungs and leaves them very vulnerable to things like pneumonia, which is the thing that ultimately kills the patient, but again, it wouldn't have happened if it weren't for the virus. The virus is the thing that kickstarts the whole process. That's why COVID-19 is listed as the cause of death on most of these death certificates. But here's an example of what a death certificate might look like. It's pneumonia caused by a bacteria caused by COVID. At the end of the day, it's COVID causing these deaths. But sometimes I'll still see people saying, well, if a patient had cancer and they were going to die anyway, and they catch COVID, isn't it the cancer that killed them and not COVID? Well, no. See, if a patient is diagnosed with cancer, and let's just say they have a year to live, that's a lot of life to live, right? A lot of time to spend with your family. Now, what if I go into the hospital and shoot that person dead, and they die instantly? Are you going to argue that it was the bullets or the cancer? You'd probably argue it was the bullets, right? Well, now what if I go into that hospital and inject them with Ebola, and instead of dying instantly, they die a week later? Are you going to say it was cancer, or are you going to say it was Ebola? Now say they caught COVID from someone sneezing on them, and instead of dying a week later, or instantly, they die 2 weeks later. It's still COVID that killed them. Their life was cut short by something, so that something is what killed them. And if you want the icing on the cake on just how bad the argument that about 10,000 people have died from COVID, just go up that CDC page and click on their link, Excess Deaths Due to COVID. Here you'll see a graph comparing deaths from this year compared to deaths from last year. And as you can see, as we hit the COVID-19 pandemic, those deaths go up drastically. In fact, we have exceeded over 200,000 deaths in excess of this year. Most of those are due to COVID, not other things. COVID is causing all of this excess death. And these latest attempts to downplay it are just sad. So don't believe what you see in memes, do fact-checking on your own, and stay informed, please. Anyway, I just wanted to make this video really quick to squash that conspiracy theory because it's just really, really bad reporting, and we don't need any more of that these days. I'm Dr. Wilson. If you like this, make sure to subscribe, and catch me tomorrow where I'll be debunking an anti-mask documentary. See you then.